So, back in 2023, Microsoft was literally building the future of AI. They were setting up data centers like nobody's business. And then they just stopped. So we're going to dig into the multi-billion-dollar question here. Was this a colossal mistake, or is there some kind of master plan we're not seeing? Let's get into it.
It really all boils down to this one image. You see it? The gears of progress just frozen solid. And this isn't some metaphor. Microsoft actually physical stopped construction on these massive AI data centers all over the world. The story of why they did it and what it's costing them is honestly one of the biggest dramas playing out in tech right now.
And that's really the big question we're here to answer. How on earth did the company that was so far ahead of everyone else, they were basically laying the foundation for this whole AI revolution, suddenly find itself scrambling, watching its rivals just blow past them?
Okay, so let's rewind the clock a bit. Because to really get how big of a deal this pause was, you have to understand just how high they were flying. In 2023, Microsoft pretty much was the AI race, period.
So right after the whole world got hooked on ChatGPT, Microsoft went all in on their huge investment in OpenAI. And this wasn't just about cutting a check, right? They committed to building the actual physical infrastructure, the engine rooms of AI, on a scale that nobody had ever seen before.
And this really shows you the insane scale of what they were doing. Just look at that blue bar. In 2023 alone, Microsoft leased more new data center capacity than Amazon, Google, Oracle, and Meta combined. They weren't just leading, they were lapping the competition.
And then, the story takes this sharp, unbelievable turn. After building all that incredible momentum, Microsoft did something nobody saw coming. They slammed on the brakes. Hard.
This quote from our source, Semi-Analysis, just nails the whiplash the entire industry felt. It was so sudden, so dramatic, and it left everyone wondering, why? The general thinking was that they had a shocking lack of faith in the very AI demand they were helping to create.
You can literally see it in the numbers here. Their share of new leasing just plummeted from a peak of over 60% of the whole market all the way down to less than 25%. In a flash, they went from being the undisputed heavyweight champ to just another contender in the ring. And the sheer size of this retreat is, it's just mind-boggling. They walked away from deals for 3.5 gigawatts of future capacity. That is a colossal amount of computing power just left on the table for any of their competitors to come in and scoop right up. And look, here's the cold, hard proof. These are satellite images from their sites in Wisconsin and North Carolina. Construction is literally frozen in time. While guys like Oracle and Google were breaking new ground, Microsoft's multi-million-dollar sites were just sitting there, collecting dust.
Now, a mistake on this level, it has staggering financial consequences. This pause wasn't just some delay, it was a multi-billion-dollar blunder that sent a huge shockwave of doubt through the entire market.
Okay, so this table right here, this is basically the receipt for the big pause. Look at Azure's share of new contracts, what they call the RPO backlog. It collapsed from 38% down to just 18%. Now look over at Oracle. Their backlog went through the roof, mostly because they were picking up all the customers and all the capacity that Microsoft just left behind. And the biggest prize they lost? The rumored $100 billion Stargate project. This was supposed to be a massive AI supercomputer for their main partner, OpenAI. But because they didn't have the capacity ready to go, they basically handed one of the biggest contracts in tech history over to a newly energized Oracle. So, after the shock wore off and they realized just how big of a miscalculation they'd made, Microsoft kicked into high gear. The story now shifts from this baffling pause to a frantic, high-stakes scramble to get back in the game, no matter what it costs. To get that capacity fast, they've had to turn to a whole new kind of company, the Neocloud. These are smaller, specialized outfits that build out GPU clouds. So basically, Microsoft is now forced to rent the very thing they should have been building themselves. And you better believe that comes at a premium. This yellow line right here shows you just how dependent Microsoft is becoming on these neoclouds. And the higher this line goes, the more they're paying a middleman, which directly eats into their own Azure profit margins. For investors, that's a huge red flag. It turns a super profitable business into something that looks a lot more like a lower margin rental operation. So what's the long game here? How do they get out of this cycle that's just crushing their margins? Well, the answer is something called vertical integration. The ultimate dream is to own every single layer of the AI economy, from the tiny silicon chip all the way up to the final app you use. This is what we call the AI economic stack. From a financial point of view, if you can control each of these layers, you capture more of the value and you're not depending on anybody else. To really truly win this game, you have to be competitive at every single level. So let's see how Microsoft is doing. Well, at the very bottom, the foundational chip layer, they're really struggling. Their first-gen chip, Maia, wasn't ready for prime time, putting them, and I'm quoting here, in dead last among the big cloud players. The real issue is being dependent. Without their own competitive chips, they have to rely on NVIDIA. And in a really weird twist, they might end up having to license chip designs from their partner, OpenAI.
And it's not just the hardware. Even in their core business, the platform-as-a-service tools that developers use to build stuff, they're running into problems. Azure's GPU cloud is actually at risk of being downgraded from its gold tier rating. Analysts are pointing to big gaps in reliability and just how easy it is to use, and that's causing them to lose out on key AI startups who are going to competitors.
So all of this brings us to the central dilemma, the really tough choice facing Microsoft's leadership right now. It's a classic trade-off, really, but one where the stakes are literally in the trillions of dollars.
And this is the question, isn't it? To catch up, they have to pour billions into renting capacity and investing everywhere imaginable, which is going to absolutely crush their famous Azure profit margins. The bet they're making is that sacrificing those profits now is the only way to lock down market leadership for the next decade. And here's why they might be willing to make that bet. This is the potential payoff. Despite the huge fumble, financial models are predicting that AI's contribution to Azure's growth is about to accelerate big time. The plan, as painful and expensive as it is, it might actually be starting to work.
Microsoft is throwing everything it has at correcting this historic mistake. But that big pause gave its rivals a massive, and maybe even an insurmountable head start. In this lightning-fast race for AI supremacy, the biggest question of all is whether you ever really get a second chance.